This MFL Marmac Coach Conversation brought to you by Meyer Auto Service, Havlicek Trucking, and Birdnow Chevrolet. We're with head wrestling coach Chet Bachman. And coach, championship season about ready to begin this week with conference championships in Elkader. And so far, I'd have to say the results on the mat have been pretty pleasing for MFL Marmac Bulldog wrestling fans. What's made you the most happy about where you are right now?
Well, I think that the kids have responded to some adversity throughout the year. It's always good to see. But most importantly, just kids working hard in the room and being here every day and putting in the time. I think sometimes, you go through some ups and downs with some of the kids that maybe you might not have a lot of leadership in the room, and then you're kind of dealing with chasing kids around a lot, and I've been down those roads. And with these kids, there's a lot of leadership and just a lot of hard work and grind in the room. And I think the other kids want to be a part of that. So when they see that, they feed off of it. So that's just something that I'm really proud of. The wins and losses, Darren, they take care of themselves, and the tournament finishes take care of themselves. And sometimes throughout the season, you don't have a full lineup. And now we're dealing with COVID, so you might not come out of the gates quite as strong. I just think we came out of the gates strong, and we've been able to hold our own.
And you mentioned some of that leadership, though, that guys that are setting the tone. And sometimes as a coaching staff at the high school level, you have years where you as a coaching staff try to do that. When the kids are doing it for you,
Mm-hmm.
how much freedom do you have as coaches to maybe take that next step and get the kid to another level from a technique standpoint when you don't have to coach the effort?
Yeah, you're right, Darren. I mean, you start to focus on the other pieces of the puzzle that you sometimes can't. And when you can, I think that's when you get the most out of your team and the most out of your program. And thus far this year, we've been able to focus on, technique, keeping kids healthier, both mentally and physically. It might be watching some tape, or it just might be just spending more time with the kid more individually and find out a little bit more about them. But definitely when you have that going on, you can walk around and focus on some other attributes to the sport.
And obviously, when you deal with a small school like yourselves, you got to share kids between sports. And football wise, obviously, you had a very good season once again for Bulldog football. And a lot of those kids were a part of that football team. Do you think a little bit of that carried over into the room this year?
Oh, I think it always does. Every sport, here's the thing: if you got a lot of those same kids and they were working hard before, then I would expect them to probably do the same. However, that's sort of a challenge, because if you can get a little wore out with one, and then you got to jump into another one. So you just got to manage with what you're dealt with. But I think that sure, when you have a lot of kids that are having success in one sport and then they come into yours, I think if you have a good environment for them, you got to still have a good environment for them, and you still got to get things done for them as a coaching aspect, if you know what I mean. But no doubt, when they come from one sport to the next, and I love football players. I mean, because I love football myself, but I mean, they come into the wrestling room, and there's nothing better than that, because it's physical, and wrestling's pretty physical and tough, and you got to stick your nose in there, and the leverage thing for some of your big guys on the line, and just having to deal with adversity and pick yourself back up, so it doesn't necessarily teach you maybe about the wins and losses, but there's something about that wrestling that can teach you a little bit more.
Heading into this weekend, it's the conference tournament in Elkader, and I know one night of the Upper Iowa Conference duels got snowed out, and the schedule didn't allow you to make up that meet. Does that maybe throw a kink in the seating meetings? Does that get your politicking on a little bit more than it used to? How are you guys going to manage that?
Well, I can tell you one thing: 25 or all the years I put it, I'm getting tired of seating meetings. But I mean, seriously, I mean, I've gotten to the point now. But no, it should not there should be so many common opponents that it should take care of itself. And if you sort of know your kids too, and unfortunately we weren't able to hook up, but um, I think that everything will take care of itself, Darren, and the wrestling will take care of itself. But like I said, there should be plenty of common opponents, and there's a lot of common sense there, and we just push forward and get this thing going and get ready for the next. So.
And now with track wrestling, you can't lie as good as you used to in seating meetings, can you?
That is true. That is true. You can really sit down and look at the computer. I was in a seating meeting this year, and unfortunately, we had one kid with like 7 forfeits, and the coach was right. We had 7 forfeits, but I was just like, "Hey, take the seed then if you want it." I mean, I'm at that point now. It's like everything. Everything will take care of itself, and for the most part, when you go to a seating meeting, you want your guys on the. Let's face it, every coach is probably wanting to wrestle to be the 2 or the 3 if he can't beat the 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always take the next best thing. So, and you want to put your kids in the best possible situation, but when it comes down to it, you still gotta win the match in front of you, and you still got to battle who's ever in front of you. And so, you just hope that you can put the kids in the best position, and I think that's what every coach tries to do. Just gotta use a little common sense when you're in there,
And of course, the dreams of getting to state and getting to Des Moines, they all start next week. It is the conference meet still this week. It's still a championship meet. It's still a battle to become the best in your area. And even though next week means more, this week still means a lot, correct?
yeah, I mean, I think I grew up in this conference. Tracy Decker, my assistant, grew up in this conference. Um, a lot of the coaches that are coaching in the conference grew up in it, so it's got some meaning to us all. Um, so I think that helps out a lot, Darren, when you have some coaches that grew up in this conference. And our conference has changed a lot. It still has some great wrestlers, but it probably doesn't have maybe the depth that it once had, Darren. I mean, let's just be honest. It is what it is. However, we still have great pride in it. We still think it's it's important to the kids. It's important not just to the really, your championship kids, but maybe it's important to those kids that might get a chance at getting third. One of your freshmen gets third in the conference. That's something to build on for the next year. Or a kid places, and I've had kids just place in the top 6 and they score points for the team. And then you can tell them afterwards how important they were to the team. And those kids might not even be 500. And we were talking about kids that don't have maybe as much success as the others. And now they are. And it gives them confidence, and it gives them a chance to believe in themselves. Even if they don't ever wrestle again, it gives them a chance to believe in themselves as a person for whatever they do. And I think that's a big piece of it that we try to do as coaches. We're not just trying. Wrestling it teaches you about wrestling, but there's so much going on there. There's so much going on there that wrestling has to offer to a kid. It really does. And the Upper Iowa Conference means a lot to all of our kids in our community, and to the Tracy Decker's dad was a conference champion. And we're talking that's years and years and years ago. His brother was the first 4-time conference champion in the Decker family, and so I have him as my assistant. Myself, and then just others that will walk up and talk to you. So there's always there's a lot of history there, I think, Darren. And no matter where we're at with our conference, I think we always appreciate it and think a lot of it.
All right, Coach, keep your team healthy. Championship time of year is here. We wish you best of luck on Saturday, and then the real fun begins. But hey, this year, anytime you're in a wrestling room or in on mats on a Saturday or a Tuesday or a Thursday night, it's a victory, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels good to be where we're at. I always say you see a lot of light at the end of the tunnel about right now, and just appreciate your support, and you appreciate a lot of the support from the area, our community, and going forward here. And it's nice to be where we're at. We're still wrestling, and see what the postseason brings.
This MFL Marmac Coach Conversation brought to you by Birdnow Chevrolet, Havlicek Trucking, and Meyer Auto Service.